Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Really appreciate you guys joining me for another video. It has been a couple of weeks, so I do apologize. But it's week 8, I have buy sell coming back at ya. Today's video I'm going over 3 buys and 2 players to sell. We always want to look at the value of our teams. Week in and week out, that can change dramatically. So the 3 buys, of course, players that I'm trying to acquire because they just have not produced for one reason or another up to this point, but I believe they are going to turn it around quickly. As far as my 2 sells, these are guys that we want to offload at peak value, get as much back as we possibly can, because I think their luck or production is about to take a turn negatively. Before we get into the buys and sells, please consider dropping a like on the video. That keeps Relentless Press moving forward, helps me out a ton. Subscribing to the channel as well means the world to me. We are on our way to our first 1,000 subscribers. If you have not hit that button yet, you can be a part of the journey with us. Would love to have you along for the ride. With that done, let's hit our buys. Starts at wide receiver with DK Metcalf, who is the current wide receiver 45. He has obviously not had that start that owners envisioned when they spent a premium pick on him. He's been held to 75 yards or less in all but 1 game this season, and he's also yet to have a game with double-digit targets. We know that's because it's a fairly crowded wide receiver room in Seattle. You look at Jackson Smith-Njigba, the rookie. Tyler Lockett is still there. Jake Bobo just made an absolutely incredible catch. So there are a lot of mouths to feed in Seattle's passing attack. We also know that Metcalf dealt with a hip injury last week. He missed the game against Arizona, and he also had a bye prior to that week. Metcalf has not produced a top 20 week in fantasy, and he is still banged up. He also has the Browns on deck, and Baltimore is up after that. Both of these teams are top 6 as far as shutting down wide receivers. So because of all of these factors, owners are definitely more down on him now than they will be for the rest of the season. It makes it a perfect time to strike a deal for the clear alpha, and that is important in Seattle's passing attack. He is the dude. The spike weeks are coming. Geno Smith is not at fault here. He has not turned back into a pumpkin. He ranks 8th in passing grade, 10th in yards per attempt, and 1st in adjusted completion rate. That means positive regression is on its way for Metcalf. He has a quarterback playing better than what his numbers and overlying stats would suggest. Tyler Lockett is also dealing with a hamstring injury. This guy is no spring chicken. He's 31 years old. We know that those injuries are easier to overcome when you're younger, so that is a positive check in Metcalf's corner. More opportunities are going to come. With all those negatives, why would we want to acquire him? Well, DK has scored double-digit tutties in 2 out of the last 3 years, and he's only scored twice this season thus far. So it is possible that he averages nearly a score a game from here on out. He also has an excellent schedule to finish off the season. In the playoffs from weeks 15 to 17, DK gets Philly, Tennessee, and Pitt. All 3 of these teams allow top 8 points to receivers, so Metcalf is going to be set up for monster weeks when you need them most, when he can win you your league. Like talked about that price, wide receiver 49, he is dirt cheap. Metcalf is going to post top 15 numbers for the rest of the season, and you can likely get him for close to half of that cost. Some offers to consider for him. Maybe Rashee Rice, who has been flashy over the last couple weeks, plays for America's new team in Kansas City. They're all over the place on TV and social media. He's wide receiver 49 right now and in that range. If that is not possible, Gabe Davis at wide receiver 29, Terry McLaurin at wide receiver 27 are both great sells that would help get Metcalf on your squad. The next buy that I have, we're going to switch to running backs. It is Aaron Jones, and there has been nothing but bad for the current owner. This guy has played in just 3 games this season while dealing with that hamstring injury. He also gets a surprisingly tough matchup on paper against the Minnesota Vikings next. In his last 2 games, it has not been good. Jones has just 71 yards of total offense on 17 touches, and a lot of that work is in the passing game. That's just 4.1 yards per touch. Ain't gonna cut it. Overall, the Packers' offense has looked scary bad at times, and the usage for Jones has not been great at all. Managers right now are probably completely over having this once stud back on their squad, and that means that we buy. The running back market is extremely thin right now, especially with options that have been bell cow producers recently. Aaron Jones has running back finishes of 9, 9, 5, and RB2 over the last 4 years. Based on that history, I believe he will bounce back. The guy's rushed for over 1,100 yards in 2 out of the last 3 seasons. Now, I will be completely transparent. The next 2 weeks on paper are not great matchups for Aaron Jones, but it does lighten up considerably after that. And that starts with a top 10 matchup in week 10 against the Steelers. It does seem like waiting would be the best option, but Jones has crushed the Vikings historically when he's been healthy, and right now his current cost is low enough where it just makes sense to take the plunge now because Jones can explode at any time, and then that buy low window is closed. Green Bay is desperate for playmakers, and Aaron is going to be the one to answer the call down the stretch as he had for the last couple of seasons. That usage he has in the passing game is going to bring and offer a solid floor. So even if the ground game continues to struggle as it has, Aaron is not going to leave you out to dry as an acquiring owner. Jones is averaging 50 receptions a year since 2019, and in that time he's also scored 49 tutties, and he's got just 2 scores this year, so it is clear to see that he is due. As the current running back 47, I am looking to move any running back 2 or flex options that could be interesting to opposing managers. So selling high on someone like Kareem Hunt, who's taking over that RB1 role in Cleveland for a couple of weeks. He's RB46. Najee Harris just scored a touchdown. Is it on the up and up? He's at RB33. Both of those guys make sense. I would also swap Javonte Williams, who's running back 36, Rachaad White, who's running back 25, or Alexander Madison up at running back 20 to get him. Calvin Ridley is the last buy that I have in week number 8. He's probably been, if not one of, the most frustrating players to own in fantasy football thus far in 2023. Now, he did start off on fire. He posted an 8-catch, 11-target, 101 yard, and a tutty explosion to begin the season. That output was good enough for wide receiver 6 on the week, and drafters thought they hit the mother load. But since then, Ridley has basically disappeared outside of an epic top 10 finish in week 5. Calvin has not even posted a top 25 showing elsewhere. Now, it has been clear feast or famine in that crowded offense. Christian Kirk looks like the true and clear-cut wide receiver 1. Evan Ingram is proving that 2022 was not a fluke. And Travis Etienne is turning into a top 5 running back before our very eyes, which means that the pie has shrunk for Ridley. But that is okay with me because it is still big enough for him to eat. And because he's starved lately, the cost for getting him is right where we want it. Ridley is going to rebound because this Jags offense is too good to not positively regress. It has been the running game thus far, but Trevor Lawrence is going to get going. He's going to get hot and turn it around. He threw for 25 touchdowns last year, but thus far, Thielen has 8 touchdowns in 7 games. That pace is going to pick up extensively as the schedule eases up in the second half. And Ridley's metrics have been solid. Nearly a 20% target share, almost a 40% air yard share, and a 23.6% first read share. He's also racked up 1.63 yards per route run, so the usage he has had begs for more production. Now, I usually do not like buying players who are going to go on their bye week the following week, but we do not have the luxury to wait, and that is because the Pittsburgh Steelers are on deck, and only the Los Angeles Chargers have allowed more points to the position. That means if we do not pull the trigger this week and he booms against Pitt, Current owners are no longer going to be alarmed by that lack of production. They will wait and hold him through the bye, and as buyers, we cannot let that happen. At this point, he is nothing but a low-end flex play, so we should not have to overpay for him. A couple overperformers I would love to sell for Ridley include Josh Downs, he's at wide receiver 26, and Kendrick Bourne is right next to him at wide receiver 25. Both of these guys have multiple top 18 finishes over the last 3 weeks. Drake London at wide receiver 30, and even George Pickens, who sits at wide receiver 19, are worth moving for Ridley, especially now that Deontay Johnson is back and soaking up targets for the Steelers. You might be able to get a little bit more with either of those last guys added on, but I would do it straight up to acquire the Jag. That is it for my buys before I get into my sells. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, try to help get us to 1,000. My first sell is Adam Thielen. First it was DJ Moore, now it is Adam Thielen as the obvious sell high wide receiver candidate. It is not hard to see why. Thielen is the current wide receiver 7, and he has done that with his bye already out of the way. This guy has 3 top 5 finishes in his last 4 games, receiving at least 13 targets in those appearances, and he has not finished worse than wide receiver 2 since back in week number 1. He's been a top 24 guy since then. He has been everything that Carolina could want him to be and more. Now that being said, cashing out now while the value is at its peak is the wise move. And that is because Thielen is going to regress. He scored 4 touchdowns in 6 games, and that is even more impressive when you look at the fact that Bryce Young has thrown just 6 touchdown passes all year, so clearly those numbers for Thielen are not sustainable. Adam is also 3 years removed from his last monster year, and he has steadily declined from a wide receiver 2 back in 2021, where he's wide receiver 23 overall, to last year where he devolved into a wide receiver 3. He was wide receiver 33 overall, and you don't do that in back-to-back seasons while you are leaving your prime age for no reason. Now, don't get me wrong, the role here is secure, but the Panthers' offense is not, and that is the problem. The schedule down the stretch isn't horrible for Carolina, but it is nothing special either. So in his 10th year as a pro, I would rather move my chips to a younger, more stable option, one that offers greater upside, that has more offensive talent surrounding him. So fresh off of a brutal matchup, someone like Devontae Adams at wide receiver 10 screams by. I would say ditto for Brandon Ayuk. Coming off of that letdown game, he's at wide receiver 18. A couple other far lower options are Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 36. Just talked about DK Metcalf. They could likely be had in a package deal for Thielen, but I would honestly take either of them straight up over him for the rest of the season. My second and final sell switches to running back. It is Alexander Madison. This guy was one of my favorite RB2 targets coming into drafts, and to this point he has paid that off with a solid top 20 showing. The Vikings back has produced 5 weeks as a top 24 finisher, and he's done that while scoring only a pair of touchdowns. Now, most of that has been because of the volume. Madison is averaging 16 touches per game. He does have a decent rest of season schedule, and he does also have plus matchups both in weeks 15 and 17. However, all of that is irrelevant because the time has come to move off of him. You have to do it now while you still can. It has been coming for a while, but Monday night made things clearer. Cam Akers is going to be a problem moving forward. Akers played a season-high 39% of the snaps in week number 7. Madison sat at 53%. Now, not only that, but Akers, just 4 games into his Vikings career, out-touched Alexander Madison against San Francisco in what basically was a must-win for the Vikings. He outperformed him as well, totaling 61 yards of total offense to just 42 for Alex the not-so-great. Now, it might be a start of things to come. It could be the new norm. Either way, it hurts Alex's chances at producing long-term in this offense. The thing is, Alex needs that volume because the efficiency has not been there for him. It does not help us that the Vikings throw more than almost any other team in the league. They're going to continue to do so after Kirk Cousins just threw for 378 yards. So even if Akers does not flat out steal this job, the role that he has already carved out is enough to make both of these running backs low-end flex options instead of Madison being a smash RB2 play that he's basically been every week this season. Sell for what you can while you can. If I can move Madison for someone like Ramondre Stevenson at running back 21 or Joe Mixon at RB 23, I am pulling the trigger in a heartbeat. Now, packaging Madison for someone like Jonathan Taylor, who I featured here just a couple of weeks ago, he's still at running back 51, obviously, with all of those missed games. That is an awesome idea as well. Whoever you can end up getting, don't miss the window, because Madison could be nothing more than bench fodder in just a couple of weeks. And that is all I got for you guys in today's video. I hope you got some awesome ideas and players that you can target or try to trade away and make your roster better. Please drop any questions or comments down below. I love to be able to help you guys out with any trade offers that you are receiving. Make sure you check back in on Saturday for my start sit, where I go over every single position. I go 25 deep at quarterback, 36 deep at wide receiver and running back, and 16 deep at tight end. I cover everything for you guys to give you all you need to know prior to Sunday's matchups. Duke Picks is coming out on Friday, so make sure you look for that as well. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abriam Opats, and I will see you next time.